Every woman who ever loved him left in tears. Some say it's a curse, others say it's just the kind of heartbreak that runs in his blood. But then she came and chose to stay, even when it hurt.
Obasi Mmandu lived in the biggest compound in the village of Umunze. The roof was tall, the gate made of carved mahogany, and the floor always swept clean. But no laughter ever passed through the doors. No firewood crackled in the kitchen for evening soup. No footstep rushed to the front door, only stillness and the echo of what used to be. He was a skilled wood carver, the best in three villages. His hands brought dead trees to life. He carved gods, masks, stools, cradles, and even drums that could make a chief cry. But his heart? It was like the stone under the sacred Iroko tree, hard, cold, and quiet. Every woman who ever loved him had left. Some ran away in the middle of the night. Some stayed until their eyes stopped shining and their voices stopped stinging. One even walked into the forest and never came back. People whispered, "That man is cursed. Any woman that loves him will suffer. His blood is bitter. His heart eats love and spits pain." So they avoided him. But Adaeze didn't. She arrived one morning with a basket of herbs on her head and a stubborn breeze behind her. Her wrapper was tied firm, her walk was confident, and her eyes were too bright for someone raised in a world like this. "Who is she?" the market women asked. "She says she's a healer from Idemili. She should stay away from Obasi's compound. She won't last a month." But Adaeze didn't listen to market talk. The first day she met Obasi, she saw him sitting alone by the village stream, carving a stool with eagle's wings. She didn't wait for introduction. She walked straight to him, sat nearby, and offered him a ripe mango. He looked at her, said nothing. She smiled. "Don't worry, I didn't poison it." He didn't laugh, he just kept carving. Then she added, "They say you carve with cursed hands, but I think you carve like someone who lost too much and now doesn't want to feel joy again." That made him stop. He stared at her, and for the first time in a long time, Obasi felt something heavy, like a forgotten drum beat in his chest. He left without taking the mango, but the next morning it was gone from where she left it. Adaeze began to visit often. She brought fruits, herbs, nothing at all. She sat in silence, watched him walk or told stories about her late grandmother's stubborn goat. Obasi never asked her to leave, and that in his world was a big thing. The village watched, gossiped, laughed quietly. She would turn into another sad song, they said. But Adaeze, she had come with her own song. She was ready to sing it beside a man whose house had forgotten what joy sounded like. Adaeze had now spent 4 market weeks sitting with Obasi, not as his lover, not even yet as his friend, but as something in between, a calm that stayed. She didn't try to fill the silence, she let it stretch like evening shadows across the compound, and slowly, like a man remembering how to breathe, Obasi began to speak. Not all at once, but one memory at a time. The first came on a hot afternoon. He was smoothing out the leg of a carved chair when he said, without looking up, "My father used to throw that kind of stool at my mother." Adaeze froze, not in fear, in deep listening. He never hit her with his hands, never raised a cane, but his words were sharper than a hunter's knife. She stayed until her eyes stopped meeting mine. Then one day she packed her wrapper and left, said, "I can't be your everything." He stopped carving. I didn't understand what she meant until I became a man with the same kind of silence. Adese's heart ached, but she said nothing. She simply passed him a bowl of palm wine and let him sit in his own truth. From that day on, the memories came more frequently. Obasi spoke of the women he had loved, strong, kind, brave women, but every time one got too close, he found ways to ruin it. I would shut down for days, he said. One night under the moon, lock myself in my workshop, act like her presence was too much. Then, when she tried to talk about it, I'll twist her words, make her the problem. And when she cried, I told her she was too emotional. He took a long breath. Eventually, they all left. Adaeze could feel the weight of it now, the real curse. It wasn't magic, it wasn't spirit turning women to stone. It was emotional damage passed down like a bitter inheritance. A long line of men didn't know how to love because no one ever taught them how to feel. Their strength came with silence, their pride refused softness, their hearts were full of walls built by fathers who never held their own. And in all of this, Obasi had begun to believe he was beyond saving. Sometimes he said, I think I'm just meant to be alone, like all the Nwandu men. We break what we touch, not by force, just by being who we are. Adeze looked at him, his voice firm but gentle. You were taught pain, not love, but pain is not your nature, it's your memory. Obasi didn't reply, but his eyes did. They blinked too fast, like someone trying to keep tears from falling. That was when she knew she wasn't there to rescue him. She was there to remind him that he still had the right to heal, even if his father didn't, even if his grandfather didn't. Because sometimes a curse isn't a spell, it's a pattern, and the bravest love is the one that stays to break it. The first time Adaeze fell ill, it started with a simple fever, nothing dramatic. She was tired, dizzy, and couldn't keep food down. At first, she brushed it off, blaming the rainy season or maybe bad weather from the stream. But when her legs gave out one afternoon on the path of Obasi's compound, she knew it was more than that. She didn't want him to worry, she didn't want to look weak or needy, so she stayed away. 3 days passed, then five, then seven. Then she sent word through a neighbor that she was resting and would return soon. But the silence she meant as protection became something else in Obasi's mind. He sat on the same bench where she once told stories about her grandmother's goats, each hour stretched like rope being pulled to tighter. The mango tree no longer gave shade, the air felt thick. Then came the voices, the same ones that had lived in his head since childhood. You see, she's leaving too. You are not enough for anyone. She's tired of you. By the 10th day, Obasi stopped eating. By the 12th, he had locked himself in his carving room again, a place Adeze once filled with light. When she returned, pale but healing, she brought pawpaw and kola nut to share. She knocked greatly on the door. No answer. She called out softly. Still nothing. When she finally opened the door, she found him hunched over a half finished drum, hands shaking, eyes hollow, breath heavy with worry he had tried to bury under silence. She touched his shoulder. He flinched. You left, he said. No emotion, just flat. I was sick, she said gently. I needed to rest. But you didn't tell me. You just disappeared. Adeze sat beside him steady. I didn't disappear. I paused. There's a difference. He looked at her almost angry. Why didn't you trust me enough to let me carry your sickness? Her eyes softened. Because I thought you dropped it, not on purpose, but from habit. The room went still. It wasn't an insult, it was the most honest thing she could say. Obasi dropped the carving tool, his head hung low. Maybe I would have. Maybe I don't know how to hold things that feel fragile. Adeze placed a hand over his chest. Then let's start with this, she said, because it's the most fragile thing of all. He looked down at her hand, then at her. It was the first time in years that someone left and still came back. It was the first time Obasi began to understand that love wasn't proven in constant presence, but in the choice to return again and again, even after fear and after space. Not every cross makes you a monster. Some just make you believe you don't deserve to be chosen, even when someone already has. The argument started over nothing. Obasi had forgotten to soak Adese's herbs overnight, the ones she needed to treat a pregnant woman in the next village. She was tired from a long day and he was already feeling guilty when she reminded him. I asked just one thing, she said. You said you'd do it. Obasi folded his arms. I didn't do it. Does that mean that I don't care? I didn't say that, Adeze replied, trying to stay calm. He stood up quickly. But that's what you meant. No, Obasi. I'm not your patient. Stop talking to me like I need fixing. His voice echoed through the compound. Silence followed. Adeze stood still, hands by her side. She had seen this before, not in Obasi alone, but in so many men like him. Raised in homes where love was loud when angry and silent when tender, where apologies were replaced with avoidance, where emotions were swallowed like stones. That night, she didn't speak again. She packed her bag slowly, placed her wrapper over her shoulder, and walked to her friend's hut at the edge of the village. She didn't leave out of anger, she left to protect her peace. But that night, her spirit refused to rest. In her dreams, she stood before a tall woman made entirely of mirror glass. Her body reflected not just Adese's face, but her memories, the moments she made, the moments she stayed, the moments she fought for Obasi, the times she bit her tongue, the times she cried quietly. The mirror woman spoke without a mouth. You love a man who has been taught to run from love. You carry his pain like your own. But the more you pour into him, the emptier you have become. Adaeze tried to explain. He's trying. I see it. The woman stepped closer. Then let him carry his healing. You are not the remedy. You are the reminder. Adaeze woke up just before dawn, sweat on her back, the dream echoing in her ears. She realized something important. She had crossed a line without meaning to. She was not Obasi's healer. She was not his savior. She was his partner, and she had forgotten to protect herself too. So she returned to the compound, not with apologies, not with soft words, but with a gentle boundary. I am here, she told Obasi, because I chose you. But I will not lose myself while loving you. Obasi didn't speak for a long time. Then finally he whispered, no one has ever loved me like this, and still walked away to rest. She smiled, then learned from it. Not all love must break you. Sometimes it teaches you how to hold someone without crushing them. From that day, the space between them became a sacred thing, a place for truth, for mistakes, for growth. The curse was not lifted, but it was shaken, and shaking was how cracks began. The change came slowly like harmattan dust settling on rooftops. You don't notice it at first until everything feels heavier. At first, it was the little things. Obasi stopped sitting outside at dusk. He no longer reached for Adese's hand when he was walking down the farm path. The carved masks he used to make with passion now sat half finished. He smiled less, laughed never. Adese watched it happen. She tried asking gently, what's on your mind? Nothing. She asked another day. Obasi talked to me. He only shook his head. You won't understand. The distance between them was growing not from anger but from something colder, shame. Obasi had begun to feel unworthy again. After months of trying to be better, one mistake, one fear, one nightmare brought it all crashing back. The curse wasn't something he could pray away. It was a voice in his head that whispered, you are not enough. She will leave you too. She's only pretending. One evening, Adeze prepared yam porridge with scent leaf, his favorite, but he barely touched it. I'm not hungry, he mumbled. You haven't eaten all day. I didn't ask for a mother. Adese's spoon dropped. The silence between them became loud. She stood up. Is that what you think I am to you? He looked away. I don't know what you are anymore. She took a deep breath, studying herself. I am the woman who came when no one else would, who stayed when it got hard, who saw the boy behind the walls. Obasi didn't reply. Maybe you don't need me here, she added quietly. Maybe I have come too close for your comfort. Still nothing. So Adeze did something she hadn't done since the day she met him. She walked away, this time not to her friend's hut. This time she went home. She walked back to Idemili. The walk back was long. Dust rose behind her, and villagers walked from behind their stalls. Some shook their heads, some whispered, we knew she wouldn't last. But none of them knew what it cost a woman to carry a curse that wasn't hers. Back in Umunze, Obasi sat alone for hours, then days. The house returned to its old silence. but it felt different now. Worse, the mango Adeze once gave him had turned dry on the window ledge. The carving room smelled like old sweat and forgotten dreams. He had realized something painful. She had never been trying to feast him. She had only asked to walk beside him, and he pushed her away not because she hurt him, but because he couldn't imagine anyone staying once they saw all of him. He had spent years preparing for abandonment. Now that it had come, he felt empty but also awake. This wasn't a curse passed down by ancestors. This was just a pattern, a prison he kept locking himself inside. And for the first time, he thought, what if love wasn't the threat? What if love was the key? The house was emptier now, not just of her daisies, but of everything she had quietly brought with her: her warmth, movement, softness. The bench outside stayed dry even when it rained. The fire pit hadn't been used in weeks. Obasi would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, hearing her voice, only to find out it was just wind through the wooden rafters. She had been gone for a full moon. No word, no message. Obasi walked around the compound staring at the places where she once laughed. His chest ached, not from sickness, but from the truth that had finally caught up with him. He hadn't been cursed. He had been afraid, afraid of being truly seen, afraid of being loved for real. Because real love holds up a mirror, and sometimes the mirror shows you things you don't want to face. One morning, before the sun climbed over the palm trees, Obase left his home and walked to the oldest part of Umunze, a quiet square where elders gathered and stories lived in the earth. At the center stood the Oji tree, sacred and tall, which with a stump where his grandfather once beat his father, where his father once dragged him for discipline, a place heavy with unspoken anger and swallowed pain. He stood there quiet, then he sat and wept. He didn't cry like a child. He cried like a man who had carried too much for too long. The tears came from deep places, from memories of silence, of cold meals, of fear guised as strength. The villagers watched in silence, others passed without a word. But an old man, one of the village griots, walked up to him and placed his hand on his shoulder. You are not the first, Nwandu, to cry here, he said, but you are the first to do it in the open. Obasi nodded, unable to speak. The griot added softly, your tears are not weakness, they are cleansing the wound your father refused to touch. Obasi stayed there for hours. When he returned home, he washed his hands, cleaned his compound, and for the first time in years, he carved again, but not a mask, not a stool. He carved a small bird, wings stretched wide, ready to fly, mouth open as if it was singing. It was her spirit, a daisy. He didn't know if she would come back, but if she did, he wanted to meet her whole, not just as a broken man hoping to be saved, but as a man willing to save himself too. The curse wasn't gone, but something bigger had started: healing. Not the dramatic kind you find in fairy tales, but the slow, quiet kind, like plants growing through the cracked walls, like sunlight returning to rooms that were once closed too long. And sometimes healing begins the moment if a man finally looks back, not to blame, but to understand. The Hamatan had softened by the time Adaeze returned. She came not in the middle of the night or with ceremony. She simply walked into the village one cool morning, head held high, eyes calm as a resting river. Some villagers watched from behind clay walls, murmuring among themselves, she's back? After all that, she's stronger than I thought. But Adaeze didn't come back because she missed the house or comfort, or even because she forgave everything. She came back because she saw the difference between a man who was stuck and a man who had started to move. Opasi was sweeping the front of his compound when he saw her. He didn't run, he didn't speak, he just paused, broom in hand, and stared. Their eyes met. He dropped the broom and walked closely towards her. When they were close enough to feel each other's breath, he said just three words: I'm still learning. Adaeze smiled softly. Good, so am I. They sat beneath the mango tree where it had all begun. This time they talked, Not about pain, not about the past, but about now, about what healing looked like and what it didn't. Adeze told him, I am not here to carry your pain for you, but I'll sit beside you while you carry it. Obasi nodded, I won't push you away again, but I might still forget how to hold you sometimes. Then I'll remind you gently. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and there was more powerful than any love story built on fantasy. Together, they cleaned the compound. They started small, one meal at a time, one carved stew at a time, one shared silence at a time. Not every day has to be peaceful, but every day was a choice to stay, a choice to try, a choice to unlearn the curse they had both inherited from this world. The idea that love had to come with suffering, or that healing had to be instant, or that meant silence. The village noticed, not because they shouted it from the rooftop, but because peace has a way of making noise all by itself. Children started visiting the compound again. Obasi gave away small carvings to small boys who looked like him, boys whose father never told them they were loved. Adeze taught women how to miss herbs for anxiety, for heartache, for exhaustion, and everything needed medicine from the earth. Some wounds healed better with truth, with presence. And one day, years later, when someone asked them how they survived their curse, Adeze answered simply, it was never about breaking the curse. It was about choosing each other, even with the curse still there. Because love is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like sweeping a yard together. Sometimes it sounds like I'm still learning. And sometimes it lives quietly in the house that once forgot how to laugh until a woman with bright eyes chose to stay. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end there. Subscribe to Reina Tales for more deep, mystical African stories that reminds us love isn't always easy, but sometimes it's worth choosing anyway.